Theo's 12th birthday was supposed to be all cake music and lakefront breeze. But the moment my son walked into the dining room, my heart sank. I'm Jillian Harper, 40, and I've devoted everything to raising Theo and running our family's restaurant. That night, his birthday glowed with candles and chatter until he stepped forward, a bruise darkening beneath his eye. My stomach knotted. Who had done this? My sister's son, a lanky 15-year-old, leaned back in his chair, smirking. I just taught him a lesson my parents say I'm never wrong anyway. Uneasy laughter rippled around the table. My parents, quick to dote on their favorite grandson, chuckled as if it were a joke. My sister, usually composed, fidgeted with her wineglass, avoiding my gaze. I pressed Theo, my voice sharp. Who did this to you? He hesitated, his eyes flicking to my sister. Then softly he said, Why did you let him? The room froze. My sister's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her face drained of color, lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. The air grew heavy, every guest frozen eyes darting between us. A chill ran through me, not from the lake breeze, but from the weight of Theo's words. What did my sister know? Why was she so shaken? I didn't have answers yet, but this wasn't just a bruise. It was a fracture in our family I would have to confront. Have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Share your story in the comments. Where did it happen? And how did you discover the truth? Let's unravel the trust that binds us. A week before Theo's birthday, I overheard Marla's voice by the lakefront dock. I had stepped outside to clear my head after a long day at Harper's Lakeside, the restaurant I'd built from scratch. The night was quiet, the water gently lapping against the dock, but my sister's sharp tone sliced through the stillness. She was on the phone, pacing near the boat shed, unaware I was standing in the shadows. Dad's giving Theo everything, she snapped. Maybe it's time he learns what responsibility feels like. Her words hit me like a slap. Theo, my 12-year-old, was bright but quiet, always absorbed in his books. Why would she resent him? I froze, clutching my jacket tighter. Marla's voice turned colder. If he's the favorite, someone needs to show him it's not that easy. Her husband, Eric, was on the other end. I could tell from her softer replies, the tones reserved just for him. You're right, she said. We need to control this before it's too late. Control what? The restaurant? My parents had always favored Marla, their eldest, the one who managed our second location with a winning smile. But Theo, he was just a child, not yet old enough to grasp the family business. I leaned closer, my breath catching. My parents, Stanley and Irene, had been at the house earlier, fawning over Marla's son, a 15-year-old with a temper I'd seen flare too often. They called him spirited, brushing off his outbursts as charming. Theo, meanwhile, was too quiet. They said, their voices heavy with disappointment. It stung, but I'd learned to let it go. Or so I thought. Marla's words now felt like a warning, something darker than sibling rivalry. Was she planning to undermine Theo's future? The restaurant was my legacy, meant for him when he was ready. Did she want it for her son instead? I stepped back, my shoes crunching on the gravel. Marla paused, glancing around but not seeing me. She lowered her voice. Yet I caught one last phrase. Eric just makes sure he knows his place. My pulse quickened. Who was he, Theo? I wanted to storm over and demand answers, but my feet refused. I'd always trusted my sister, even when her ambition outshone mine. Growing up, she had been the golden child, first to graduate, first to marry, first to give our parents a grandchild. I'd accepted it, focusing on Theo and the restaurant. But this felt like betrayal. Back inside, I found Theo curled up with a book in the living room. His small frame looked fragile under the lamplight, and guilt pricked me. Had I missed something? Was Marla's resentment deeper than I'd realized? I remembered last month her son storming out after my parents asked him to help Theo with chores. He snapped, "Why should I? He's not my problem." Marla had laughed, but her eyes lingered on Theo, sharp and calculating. I'd brushed it off as teenage mood swings. Now her words echoed in my mind, heavy with intent. I sat beside Theo, my hand resting on his shoulder. "You okay, kid?" I asked. He nodded, eyes fixed on the page, avoiding mine. I wanted to ask about his cousin, any fights or tension, but the words stuck in my throat. Marla was family. Surely she wouldn't hurt Theo. Or would she? The restaurant had long been a sore point she'd pushed to take more control, claiming her experience outweighed mine. My parents had agreed, praising her leadership while dismissing my late nights balancing books and menus. I had let it slide, thinking we'd work it out. But now her voice on the dock felt like a line drawn in the sand. I stood pacing the room. Eric's presence, though unheard, loomed in my mind. He had always backed Marla, his quiet confidence fueling her plans. What did control mean? I thought of my parents, their endless favoritism. They had lavished attention on Marla, giving her the louder applause. Theo deserved better, a future free from their schemes. I resolved to watch Marla closely at the birthday party. If she was scheming, I would see it. I had to protect my son. The dock's shadows lingered in my thoughts as I turned off the light. As the lake breeze drifted through the dining room, I watched Theo's quiet face. The birthday party buzzed with chatter, kids chasing each other with balloons, adults clinking glasses. My son sat at the head of the table, eyes downcast, the bruise under his eye more pronounced in the chandelier's glow. Unease from what I'd overheard by the dock last week refused to leave me. My sister's words, Dad's giving Theo everything, still burned in my mind. I leaned toward Theo, my voice low. "How'd you get that mark, kid?" He fidgeted, glancing toward my sister across the room. "It was just an accident." He mumbled, his tone unconvincing. Marla, refilling her wine, caught my gaze and offered a tight smile. "Kids play rough sometimes," she said, her voice too casual. "You know how boys are, Jillian." Her dismissal felt like a deflection, and my chest tightened. I pressed on. "What kind of accident?" Theo shrank into his chair, silent fingers twisting the edge of his napkin. Before I could push further, her son Tucker leaned toward Marla, whispering something sharp. I caught the glint of her phone screen as it lit up in her hand. A message flashed. "Did you tell him yet?" The sender's name was hidden, but Marla's face stiffened. She shoved the phone into her pocket, her smile faltering. I wanted to grab it, demand to see the message, but the table full of guests held me back. Who was him? Theo Tucker. My pulse raced, the memory of her dockside conversation clawing at me. Was this about the restaurant or something worse? My parents, Stanley and Irene, broke the tension with a laugh. "Jillian, you're making a fuss over nothing," Mom said, her tone sharp. "Boys get scrapes. Let's not ruin the party." Dad nodded, eyes on Marla warm with approval. Their favoritism stung as always. They had always seen her as the capable one, while I was the sentimental sister too soft to handle the family business alone. I bit my lip, holding back a retort. The guests, neighbors, restaurant staff. A few of Theo's friends' parents shifted uncomfortably, smiles fading. One woman, a regular at Harper's Lakeside, looked away, pretending to adjust her scarf. Another guest, a co-worker, busied himself with his plate. The air felt thick. Their avoidance spoke louder than words. I stood gesturing for Theo to cut the cake, hoping to move past the moment. But my eyes remained on Marla. She laughed too loudly, tossing her hair, but her hands trembled as she passed out plates. Tucker slouched beside her, his smirk gone, replaced by a scowl. He avoided Theo's gaze, fingers drumming on the table. Nervous, guilty. The message, "Did you tell him yet?" spun in my mind. What was Marla hiding? Her husband. Eric sat quietly at the far end, face unreadable, eyes flicking between wife and son. Did he know too? I forced a smile, clapping as Theo blew out his candles. The room cheered, but the sound felt hollow. I caught a neighbor whispering to her husband, heads tilted toward Marla. They had sensed it too, the shift, the unspoken tension. I wanted to confront my sister, then drag her aside, demand answers. But Theo's small smile as he sliced the cake stopped me. This was his day, and I wouldn't let it crumble. Still her dockside words, her son's smug lesson comment, and now this cryptic message gnawed at me. As the party wound down, guests drifted toward the door, their goodbyes quick and awkward. Marla stayed by the cake, fussing over leftovers, avoiding my eyes. My parents lingered, praising her for helping with decorations as if I hadn't spent weeks planning this. Their bias was clear, but I didn't care. Theo's bruise wasn't just a scrape, and Marla's reaction wasn't mere nerves. I needed to know what she was hiding. I'd seen how Tucker whispered to her how her phone lit up with that message. It wasn't random. I pulled Theo aside, brushing his hair back to inspect the bruise again. "You sure you're okay?" I asked softer this time. He nodded, eyes on the floor. I hugged him close, my resolve hardening. Whatever Marla and her son were hiding, I would find out. The party might be over, but this was just the beginning. The dining room lights flickered as the last guest left. After the guests left, the lake's reflection danced on the living room walls. The house felt too quiet, the echoes of Theo's birthday party fading into the night. I stood by the fireplace, hands clenched, eyes fixed on my sister. Marla lounged on the couch, swirling a glass of wine, her casual air infuriating. I couldn't let this go, not after Theo's bruise, her flimsy accident excuse, and that cryptic message on her phone. "Marla," I said, voice steady but sharp. "We need to talk about Theo, now." She raised an eyebrow, her smile thin. "What's there to talk about?" "He's fine, Jillian. Kids get hurt playing." Her dismissal fueled my anger. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "That mark on his face isn't from playing. What do you know about it?" Her eyes flicked away, and for a moment I saw a crack in her composure. Before she could answer, my friend Connie, who had stayed to help clean up, hesitated at the doorway. She clutched a stack of plates, face tense. "Jillian, I heard something last week," she said softly. "By the backyard near the dock. Theo was crying. I thought I heard your nephew's voice, but when I looked, they were gone." My stomach churned. Connie's words weren't proof, but they were enough to make my blood run cold. Crying, I pressed, turning to Marla. What was Tucker doing to him? My sister's face hardened. "Don't jump to conclusions," she snapped. "Your son probably provoked him. Tucker's just a teenager, you know how they get." Her words stung, blaming Theo as if he had asked for it. I wanted to shout, but my parents, Stanley and Irene, stepped in from the kitchen, expressions stern. "Jillian, enough," Dad said, low but commanding. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We don't need family drama splashed around Madison." Mom nodded, arms crossed. "Marla's right. Boys fight. It's normal. Let's not make a spectacle." Their words hit like betrayal. They'd always favored Marla, her charm, her confidence, her son. Theo was too quiet, too sensitive in their eyes. I'd swallowed their bias for years, but now it felt like a wall between us. "This isn't about drama," I said, voice rising. "This is about my son. He's hurt, and Marla knows more than she's saying." Marla stood, setting her glass down with a clink. "You're paranoid," she said, tone icy. "I didn't see anything. Tucker and Theo were just messing around last week. You're turning this into something it's not." Her denial felt rehearsed. I remembered her phone lighting up during the party. That message, "Did you tell him yet?" I wanted to demand her phone, but Connie's nervous glance stopped me. She looked torn, loyalty to me warring with fear of causing a scene. "I didn't see it clearly," Connie added, voice barely above a whisper. "But the crying, it didn't sound like a game." My parents exchanged a look, discomfort clear. "Jillian, think about the family," Mom said, voice softer, almost pleading. "We've worked hard to keep our name clean. Harper's Lakeside is a legacy. Don't drag us into a mess over a childish spat." Their words punched me in the gut. They weren't protecting Theo. They were protecting their reputation, their precious image in this small town. Marla nodded, lips curling slightly, knowing she had their support. I felt the weight of their favoritism heavier than ever. For years I'd let it slide, thinking it was just their way. But now, with Theo's bruise and Marla's lies, it was unbearable. I turned to Connie, voice steady despite the fury building inside. "You heard him crying. That's not nothing." She nodded, eyes wide. "I should have said something sooner," she admitted, guilt lacing her words. "But I didn't want to assume." I touched her arm, grateful for her honesty, even if late. Marla scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're both ridiculous. Theo's fine, and Tucker's not a monster. You're attacking my son over nothing." Her defense was fierce, but her eyes darted to the side, betraying her nerves. I took a deep breath, mind racing. Marla's refusal to admit anything, my parents' insistence on silence, it was all too familiar. They'd always shielded her even when we were kids. If I broke a vase, I was grounded. If Marla did, it was an accident. Now they were dismissing Theo's pain to keep the peace. But I wasn't a child anymore, and I wouldn't let this go. That bruise wasn't an accident, and Connie's story wasn't a coincidence. I needed proof, something undeniable. The security cameras outside the ones I installed last year might hold the answer. They covered the backyard, the dock where Connie heard Theo crying. "Marla," I said, voice cold, "if you're telling the truth, you won't mind me checking the cameras." Her face paled for a second, then she forced a laugh. "Go ahead, waste your time," she said, hands shaking as she picked up her glass again. My parents frowned, Dad muttering about family trust. I ignored them. Resolve hardening. Connie gave me a small nod, her support a quiet anchor. I wasn't alone, but I was done waiting for Marla to come clean. The cameras would show what she wouldn't say. I turned away, footsteps heavy on the hardwood floor. In the quiet study, I opened the security app under the lamplight. The house was still, the night pressing against the windows as I sat at the desk, heart pounding. Marla's lies from the living room, her claim that Theo provoked her son, echoed in my mind. Connie's story about hearing Theo cry in the backyard wasn't proof, but it was enough to bring me here to the cameras I'd installed last year. I tapped the app, scrolling to the footage from the night Connie mentioned. My fingers trembled as the screen loaded. The video flickered to life, showing the backyard under moonlight. Theo stood near the dock, small and hunched. Tucker, taller and broader, loomed over him. I held my breath as he shoved Theo hard, sending him sprawling onto the grass. My stomach twisted. Marla stood a few feet away, arms crossed, watching without speaking. She didn't intervene. Tucker kicked dirt toward Theo, who curled up, shielding his face. The bruise under his eye, it came from that fall. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't look away. Marla just stood there, expression cold, almost satisfied. I paused, the video, hands shaking, and called Theo into the study. He shuffled in, eyes wary, the bruise still vivid. "Theo," I said, kneeling to meet his gaze, "tell me what happened that night." He hesitated, fingers twisting the hem of his shirt. Then in a whisper he said, "Marla told Tucker I deserved it." The words hit like a punch. My sister had encouraged her son to hurt mine. I pulled Theo into a hug, his small body trembling against me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, voice cracking. "I was scared," he admitted. She said no one would believe me. Fury replaced my shock. I marched to the living room where Marla sat with my parents, Stanley and Irene, sipping coffee, as if nothing was wrong. I held up my phone, the paused video glowing. "Care to explain this?" I demanded, voice sharp. Marla's cup froze halfway to her lips. She glanced at the screen, face paling, as she saw herself standing by while Tucker pushed Theo. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "I thought he was just playing rough." "Boys do that, Jillian." "Playing rough," I snapped, stepping closer. "You stood there and let your son hurt mine. You told him Theo deserved it." My parents gasped, eyes darting to Marla. Mom's hand flew to her chest. "Jillian, calm down," she said, voice shaky. "We can't have this getting out. Think of the family, the restaurant." Dad nodded, face grim. "This stays between us," he added. "No need to air dirty laundry in Madison." Their panic only fueled my anger. They weren't worried about Theo. They were worried about their reputation the same way they'd always shielded Marla. Marla stood hands raised defensively. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, voice thin. I was frustrated. Okay, Theo's always been the favorite, getting everything handed to him. I told Tucker to teach him a lesson, but I didn't think he'd actually hurt him. Her excuse was flimsy eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to believe she hadn't meant harm, but the video didn't lie. She had stood by complicit while my son suffered. Theo's words Marla told Tucker I deserved it burned in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. I turned to my parents, voice cold. "You've always taken her side," I said. "Even now you're more worried about gossip than Theo's pain." Mom's eyes widened, but she didn't argue. Dad shifted uncomfortably, muttering, "We just want what's best for everyone." But I saw through them. They'd spent years lifting Marla up, dismissing Theo as too quiet, too weak. I'd let it slide, thinking family meant compromise. But not anymore. Theo deserved better than their excuses, better than Marla's cruelty. I looked at my sister face, a mask of guilt and defiance. "You crossed a line," I said, voice steady, despite the storm inside. "I trusted you, and you hurt my son." She opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "Don't." I saw the video. I heard Theo. Connie, lingering by the doorway, gave me a small nod, a quiet support. I turned to Theo, standing behind me, eyes fixed on the floor. "You don't have to be scared anymore," I told him, hand on his shoulder. He nodded, a flicker of relief crossing his face. My parents tried again, voices overlapping. "Jillian, don't do anything rash," Mom pleaded. "We can handle this privately." But I was done listening. Marla's betrayal wasn't just a family spat, it was deliberate, cruel. I wouldn't forgive her, not for this. The cameras had shown me the truth, and Theo's words had sealed it. I needed to protect my son no matter the cost. I'd deal with Marla and my parents tomorrow, but tonight I'd start by making sure Theo felt safe. I led Theo out of the room, my resolve unyielding. By morning, the lake's mist hung low as I faced Marla in the dining room. The house was silent. The remnants of Theo's birthday party cleared away, but the weight of last night's discovery pressed heavily on me. The video of Tucker pushing my son Marla standing by, and Theo's words Marla told Tucker I deserved it, had shattered any trust I had left. I had barely slept, my mind torn between fury and doubt. Could I really risk tearing my family apart over this? I needed clarity, so I had called Connie to meet me early. My friend arrived, her face etched with concern. We sat at the kitchen counter, coffee steaming between us. "You saw the video," Connie said softly. "What are you going to do?" I gripped my mug knuckles white. "I can't let this go," I said. Marla didn't just stand there. She encouraged it. "Theo's scared, Connie. I'm his mother. I have to protect him." She nodded, her eyes steady. "You're right, but this will change everything. Your parents, the restaurant, Marla won't take this quietly." Her words stirred the storm inside me. I had built Harper's Lakeside for Theo, for his future. Marla had always wanted more control, but after what she had done, she didn't deserve a say. I paced the room, thoughts racing. Part of me wanted to forgive, to keep the family intact for Theo's sake. Marla and I had grown up close, sharing secrets by the lake, but those memories felt hollow now, tainted by her betrayal. Theo's fear, his quiet confession, outweighed any nostalgia. I stopped pacing, my resolve hardening. "I'm giving the restaurant to Theo when he's older," I said firmly. "Marla's done managing it. She's out." Connie's eyes widened, but she nodded. "It's your call," she said. "Just be ready for the fallout." Marla walked in, then her husband Eric trailing behind, his face unreadable. My parents, Stanley and Irene, followed, expressions tense. I didn't wait for pleasantries. "Marla," I said coldly, "you're no longer managing Harper's Lakeside. It's Theo's legacy, not yours." Her jaw dropped, eyes flashing with anger. "You can't do that," she snapped. I've poured years into that place. I held her gaze. You poured venom into my son. I saw the video. You let Tucker hurt him. You told him Theo deserved it. Eric stepped forward, voice sharp. Watch it, Jillian. You're crossing a line. We'll sue if you push this. I ignored him and turned to my parents. I'm reporting Tucker's actions to CPS, I said. They need to investigate what happened. Mom gasped, clutching Dad's arm. You'll destroy this family, she said, voice trembling. Think of the scandal, Jillian. The restaurant, our name. Dad nodded grimly. Keep this quiet. We can handle it ourselves. Their words echoed last night's pleas, but only fueled my determination. They had always protected Marla, dismissing Theo as weak. I was done with their excuses. Handle it yourselves, I said, voice rising. Like you handled Marla letting her son hurt mine. Theo's not safe with her around, and I won't pretend he is. Marla's face twisted, voice low and venomous. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was a mistake, Jillian. Tucker's just a kid. I shook my head, anger steady. A kid you told to hurt my son. You don't get to call that a mistake. Connie stood beside me, a quiet anchor. She's right, Marla, she said softly. Theo deserves better. Eric's eyes narrowed. You're making a big mistake, he said. You'll regret dragging us through this. His threat hung in the air, but I didn't flinch. I had spent years keeping the peace, letting Marla's ambition slide, letting my parents' favoritism fester. No more. Theo's safety came first, and if that meant breaking the family, so be it. I've already called CPS, I said, voice unwavering. They'll be in touch. Marla's face paled, hands trembling. Eric grabbed her arm, jaw tight. We're done here, he said, pulling her toward the door. Marla shot me a glare, eyes burning with resentment, but followed him out the door, slamming behind them. My parents stayed, faces a mix of shock and disapproval. You've gone too far, Mom said, voice breaking. We could have fixed this. Dad shook his head, muttering about the restaurant's reputation. I looked at them, heart heavy but resolute. You chose Marla over Theo, I said. You always have, but I won't. They didn't respond. Their silence spoke louder than any argument. Connie touched my arm gently. You did the right thing, she said. Theo needs you to be strong. I nodded, grateful for her support, but the weight of my decision settled over me. I had cut Marla out, reported her son, and defied my parents. The family I knew was fracturing, but Theo was worth it. I walked to the window, the lake's mist curling over the water. I would call a lawyer next, preparing for whatever Marla and Eric might throw at me. Harper's Lakeside would be Theo's one day, and I would make sure it was his alone. Marla's betrayal had cost her everything, my trust, her role in the business, our bond. I didn't know what CPS would find, but I had done my part to protect my son. The road ahead would be hard, but I was ready. As the sun rose higher, I sat with Theo by the lake, resolve unyielding. The lake was still as Marla's car disappeared down the driveway. The morning air was crisp, mist curling over the water as I stood on the porch watching my sister and her husband fade from sight. The slam of their door still echoed in my mind along with their threats and my parents' pleas to stay quiet. I had made my choice, reporting Tucker to CPS, cutting Marla out of Harper's Lakeside, but the weight of it lingered. I needed to speak with Theo to make sure he felt safe now. I found my son by the dock, skipping stones across the lake's surface. His small frame seemed lighter, less hunched than it had been at his birthday party. I sat beside him, the wooden planks cool beneath my hands. "How are you feeling, kid?" I asked softly. Theo tossed another stone, watching it skim the water. "Better," he said, eyes meeting mine. "I'm not scared of Tucker anymore." His words loosened the knot in my chest. I pulled him close, his head resting against my shoulder. "You don't have to be," I said. "I'll always protect you." He nodded, a small smile breaking through the first real one I'd seen in weeks. We sat in silence, the gentle ripples of the lake, a calm contrast to the storm we'd weathered. I thought of Marla's betrayal, standing by as Tucker hurt Theo, offering weak excuses. I thought of my parents, Stanley and Irene, placing reputation over my son's well-being. Yet here, with Theo, I felt a spark of hope. He was my family now, the one I would build on trust, not secrets. "This place," I said, gesturing to the lake. "It's yours, Theo. The restaurant, too. It's your future." His eyes widened and he nodded, pride lighting his gaze. Later that day, I drove to Harper's Lakeside with Connie. The restaurant sat just 10 minutes from the house, its familiar sign weathered but proud. I had ordered a new one weeks ago, keeping it a secret until now. As we arrived, workers were already hoisting it into place, Theo's Lakeside Kitchen. The bold letters gleamed in the sun, a symbol of a fresh start. Connie squeezed my arm, smiling warmly. "It's perfect," she said. "He's going to love it." I nodded, throat tight. This was more than a name change. It was a promise to Theo, a way to leave Marla's shadow behind. Inside the restaurant buzzed with its usual rhythm, servers weaving between tables, the clink of glasses, the scent of fresh bread. Connie and I sat in the office papers spread before us. "I need you to help run this place," I told her. "Not just for now, but for Theo, until he's ready." My friend leaned back, thoughtful. "You know I'm in," she said. "I'll teach him everything, how to balance the books, charm the customers, keep the kitchen humming. He'll grow into it." Her confidence steadied me. Connie wasn't family by blood, but she had been there through every step of this mess, a rock, when my parents and sister faltered. We spent hours mapping out the transition. Marla's name was removed from all contracts, her access to accounts revoked. I had hired a lawyer to handle any legal pushback from her and Eric, but I wasn't worried. The security footage, Theo's words, and Connie's account were sufficient to justify my actions. CPS would handle Tucker's case, and I trusted them to do what was right. For now, my focus was Theo, ensuring he felt secure and giving him a future to believe in. Back at the house, I showed Theo the new sign on my phone, a photo Connie had taken. His face lit up, fingers tracing the screen. "That's my name," he said, voice full of wonder. "It's yours," I told him. "One day, you'll make this place your own." He hugged me tightly and I felt the weight of the past week lift. Marla's departure, my parents' disapproval. They didn't matter here. Theo was safe, and we were starting anew. That evening, Connie joined us for dinner by the lake, the new sign visible in the distance. We laughed over old stories, ones that didn't involve Marla or my parents. Connie promised to take Theo fishing next weekend, teaching him how to bait a hook properly. He grinned, already planning his catch. Watching them, I realized this was the family I wanted, one built on honesty, not appearances. My parents might never understand, but that was their loss. I had chosen Theo, and I would choose him every time. As stars emerged, I looked out at the lake, its surface reflecting the glow of the new sign. Theo's Lakeside Kitchen was more than a name, it was a declaration. We had faced betrayal, fear, and doubt, yet we had come through stronger. With Connie by our side, I knew we could rebuild not just the restaurant, but our lives. Theo deserved that, and so did I. With the new sign gleaming, I held Theo's hand by the lake. A year later, Theo's next birthday glowed at Theo's Lakeside Kitchen. The restaurant buzzed with warmth, string lights casting a soft glow over tables filled with staff and close friends. Laughter mingled with the clink of glasses, a stark contrast to the tension of last year's party. I stood by the bar watching my son weave through the crowd, his smile bright and unburdened. The bruise was long gone and the fear in his eyes had vanished. Theo's Lakeside Kitchen had become a beacon of our new beginning, its name a testament to the future I had promised him. Connie, my friend and now co-manager, handed me a glass of sparkling cider. "He's thriving," she said, nodding toward Theo, who was showing a server how to fold napkins into swans. I smiled, my heart full. "Couldn't have done it without you," I told her. Over the past year, she had stepped up, handling inventory, training staff, and teaching Theo the ropes of the business. The restaurant had grown new menu items, packed reservations, and a loyal customer base. Theo's confidence had grown as well, his quiet nature giving way to steady strength. As the party hummed, a server approached with a small envelope. "This came for Theo," she said. Brow furrowed. The handwriting was unmistakable Marla's. My stomach tightened, but I handed it to my son, who was slicing his birthday cake nearby. He wiped his hand's curiosity on his face as he opened the letter. His eyes scanned the page, then narrowed. Without a word, he tore it in half, letting the pieces fall to the floor. "Some things are better left unopened," he said, voice firm. I glimpsed Marla's words, phrases like, "I was wrong and please forgive me," but Theo's choice was clear. I smiled, quiet pride swelling in my chest. He was stronger than I had ever imagined. I didn't reach out to my sister. Her apology, a year too late, couldn't undo the pain she had caused. She had stood by while her son hurt mine, encouraged it even, and no letter could erase that. My parents, Stanley and Irene, had faded from our lives too, their loyalty to Marla a wall I couldn't breach. They had called a few times, urging me to move past the conflict, but I had kept my distance. Theo deserved a family built on trust, not excuses. Connie and the restaurant staff had become that family, their support unwavering where blood had failed. After the cake was cut, Theo gathered a group of kids' friends from school and a few staff members' children in the kitchen. I watched from the doorway as he led them in, making simple pizzas, his voice steady as he explained how to knead dough. "Don't rush it," he said. "Hands guiding a younger boy's? It's like building something, you take your time to make it right." The kids listened, faces bright with focus. Connie leaned against the counter, grinning. "He's a natural," she whispered. I nodded, throat tight. A year ago, Theo had been scared to speak up. Now he was leading his confidence, a quiet victory. The party wound down, guests lingering over coffee and dessert. Connie and I cleared tables, our rhythm practiced and easy. She had promised to teach Theo more about the business, scheduling, budgeting, even handling difficult customers. "He's got a good head on his shoulders," she said as we stacked plates. "He'll run this place better than any of us one day." I believed her. Theo wasn't just healing, he was growing into someone who could carry the legacy I had built for him. As the last guests left, I stood outside the lake, reflecting the restaurant's lights. Theo joined me, hands in his pockets. "Thanks for this, Mom," he said, gesturing to the sign above us. "It feels like home." I pulled him close, my heart steady. "You're my home," I told him. The past year had been hard. Legal letters from Marla and her husband Eric, CPS's investigation, my parents' silence. But we had come through. Theo's lakeside kitchen wasn't just a business. It was proof we could rebuild stronger than before. I thought about what this journey had taught me. Family wasn't about blood ties or shared history. It was about trust, about choosing the people who stood by you when it mattered. Marla's betrayal. My parents' favoritism had shown me who my real family was. Connie, with her steady presence, and Theo, with his growing courage, were enough. Family isn't blood. It's trust, I said aloud, voice soft but certain. Theo nodded, eyes on the lake. "I get it," he said. "We've got that now." His words sealed the lesson, not just for us, but for anyone who had walked a similar path. Trust was the foundation we had built, and it would carry us forward. Theo's laughter carried across the lake as I closed the restaurant for the night.